Well, we got a lot of good things to talk about on this episode. First of all, the SAT, man.
Yeah.
We've all taken it, right? If we're going to college. But I think even then, if you weren't going to college, you still had to take it, didn't you?
No, no, no. I don't think you had to take it. It wasn't
Oh,
forced. I will say a lot of times if you were in high school, you had to do like the pre-SAT.
yeah.
Uh,
I remember that. Dude, I killed it at the pre-SAT.
did you?
But then I ended up taking the ACT, man, not the SAT. I never took the SAT.
Man. So that pre-SAT was not even helpful.
Not at all. And I really nailed it. I should have just done the SAT. Why
Mhm.
why is there even an alternative? What's the
You know,
difference?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I
I
don't
think
get it.
it's different schools require different things and they cover different things, I guess, or at least how it's structured is different. Because I
Yeah.
know the grading scale is also different too on it.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it is a lot different. I think somebody recommended to me based off how your brain works, you'd probably do better on the ACT, right? But like I'm not gonna get into Harvard with that. So
Yeah.
I started off this podcast by saying who among us hasn't taken the SAT? The answer is me. I haven't taken it. So that's for starters. But yeah, they're changing the format of this. They're shortening it by an hour and they're making it virtual.
Hmm.
And to me, the virtual thing isn't as big of a deal as the shortening of it. That's a third of
Yeah.
the content being taken out. And so we want to talk about that. I think there's a lot of ways you can approach this. Is this like making our society even easier, like a lot of people tend to complain about? Or is this realizing that the relevancy of this test is not that high, right?
Yeah.
What is the relevancy of it? Why are we shortening it? So we got a lot to talk about with that, but we're also doing a season finale episode.
Oh man.
And if you're listening on the podcast right now, you might be wondering, there were seasons to this to this show. Yeah, there were seasons, and this has been season 3 for about 2 years now. But
Hmm.
we're about to switch things up with a new season and a new format of the Catch Up Podcast. So we will tell you about it. So stay tuned. But let's go ahead and get into it, man.
Oh man.
Man, you didn't say anything this time because I always cut it out.
Exactly. Well, and I also know that I cut it too. So
I know. I know. I know. Every time, man. You're just like, you know what? Screw it.
Mhm.
Um, okay, cool. Well, yeah, this is gonna be interesting. Do you feel like you have the information you need on this so we don't sound like a bunch of goobs?
I've got the article here. I've got the article. I'm
Also,
ready to report on this, Bob.
on this Bob. Well, if you guys don't know, over on our YouTube page, Jennison edits and posts the finalized versions of these, and he does a very good job. Um, and so if you part of the allure of the live stream is that you get to watch us behind the scenes, interact with us in
Mhm.
real time. That actually is the entire allure, which is why I would suggest not doing this. But if you're like, you know what, I missed the live stream and I just want to see what the episode was like, go over to the YouTube page, and you'll get the whole episode in video format. Just
Mhm.
like it is here. What was weird too is we were running we had our good friend Blake Ellis on last week or 2 weeks ago, really, but split into 2 episodes. And I was running his mic and my mic into the same interface, and his channel was too low compared to mine on
Mhm.
the audio version. But for some reason, the way StreamYard routes the audio, it sounded perfect. I don't know
Yep.
why, but it sounded normal. So you can definitely get a benefit of watching us on the live stream or on our YouTube channel for sure.
Mhm.
Which part of that is interacting with us, obviously. So, um, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get into this, man. All right, before we get into our topics, we want to remind you of the best ways to support the show. It will definitely be crucial as we move forward with a lot of things we have planned in the new um, season if you want to follow us all the way through it. But the best and easiest way for you is to leave a rate and review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you think of the show. Every time you do that, whatever platform you're watching on, it makes us more visible to other potential listeners. Actually, it's even worked on our Facebook page. We've grown just by people leaving reviews on the Facebook page. So no matter where you're listening, leave us a rating and a review, and let us know how we're doing, what you think of the podcast. The next best way is if you want to support us financially, outside of subscribing, of course. If you want to support us financially, go over to our website. It's linked in the description of this episode. It's nosignalrocks.com/the-ketchup-podcast, or just hit the link. And there's a drop-down menu over on the homepage of nosignalrocks.com. And you can find all of our merch, all of our apparel, all of our audio and video all in one place, which is really cool. So those are really the best ways. Of course, we're live streaming on Facebook right now, and we get to interact with people in real time about the topics that we're talking about. And that is crucial for you to give us a like and give us a follow. That's linked in the description of this episode as well. And it's facebook.com/theketchupcast. Or just search our podcast over on Facebook. This will be crucial for you because we will be live streaming, and as we'll talk about here shortly, it will be key to the format of our show going forward, is your interaction. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but right now let's go ahead and get into this topic. And it is that the SAT is going digital, right?
Yeah.
It's
bringing it into the modern age, man.
Man, no, not even bring him into the like 20 years ago age, right? And man, we could have been doing this on Windows XP. But
you think Windows XP could handle the sophistication of the SAT, man?
Are you dare challenging the greatest operating system of all time? What other operating system has memes based off of it? None.
That's true, but well, I mean, you got like Windows 8. That's got a ton of memes based off of it.
Yeah, terrible. I was like, that's not the greatest. I was like, what is that?
No, not the greatest. Probably one of the worst.
Yeah, I was like, I just entered the multiverse. You're saying, yeah, no, it is entering the modern age, like you said. So here's a couple of things that they're changing. First of all, in case you had forgotten, which I certainly had, but the SAT is 3 hours long. Okay. Not anymore. Not anymore. It's 2 hours. Could you imagine the people that are about to go into college? Even this year, right? Because you still have spring SAT, and they're like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I got this, man. I'm going to Columbia. I'm going to Harvard, Howard, whatever. And according to the research that I've done here, a lot of this has to do with the pandemic. This was partly a move away from this because a lot of the school, well, we all know, any one of us who have gone to college know that they place a lot of weight on this test, right, to get in. Yeah. But most of the schools, like, you'd have to really have screwed up to not get in with your SAT score, right? It's the graduate schools where that changes, but the Ivy League schools are the ones that really place a lot of interest on these scores, and they're moving away from this. There was a Cal State University that has done away with the SAT entirely, as far as acceptance goes. So not only this, though, I want to mention the other change here is, it's, like we said, it's going virtual. And, in some places I see it talk about online, other places call it on the tablet. So you can easily take tests. I mean, we did it when we were in college, where you'd go in and take tests, and the only thing the computer was connected to was that test. Yeah. So
exactly. I would have something similar.
Yeah, I would have to imagine that too. But yeah, what do you think about these changes? I don't know. They're interesting to me, and I don't know about making it easier or harder? I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, so I want to hear your opinion first.
Yeah, no, I have mixed feelings about it as well. I mean, the good thing is, this isn't going to really start impacting people until like 2023. I think they said, yeah, it's rolling out incrementally in 2023 to 2024. Um, but I don't know, to be completely honest, because as someone who I did take the SAT, but it didn't really matter when it came to like where I went to college.
Right.
um, Mainly because I went to community college, and then once I went into community college, well, community college didn't really require, um, they didn't really
Yeah.
require SAT scores.
Right. Right. Right.
And then those credits that I earned in community college transferred over. There wasn't really a need for me to take it. Um, but I do remember, and I do know friends who had taken the SAT and how hard it was and how stressful it was.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, it has such a big impact um, on like acceptance into these big colleges and stuff like that. And the problem is like, when you have a bunch of friends going to a certain college, and they all score well on their SATs and they're getting in, and you scored okay, and you're not able, and you may not be able to get in because of that. It's stressful.
Yeah.
And then I'll say the way that I think about college is far different than the way that I did before. Um, I think, my hot take on it is I think college is really only helpful for certain jobs, and other jobs it's may not be as helpful as,
Sure.
say, certifications or on like essentially experience within that field itself.
Mhm.
Where it whether it be internships or um actual just like hands-on like job training. So
Mhm.
uh, it sends me a lot of mixed feelings, to be honest. And so I think shortening the time, uh, I think can help, because it can, take off a little bit of that stress when it comes to preparing for it. I don't think it's going to make it any easier, because I think
Right.
they're just going to make it far more challenging questions, but it's just not going to take as long. So that way they don't lose uh, the credentials or the prestigiousness, I guess, of taking the test and scoring very high on it. So,
Sure. Yeah. No, I feel that. Yeah. You make a lot of good points, and I think the thing to me is, you're talking about putting a lot on one exam, which I think is
mhm,
crazy.
mhm,
You have 4 years of work, and really, I would say 2 years that are really serious. Your junior and senior year.
yep,
Uh, but it is cumulative for your entire high school career, your GPA.
mhm,
But I don't know, man. I had a decent GPA in high school, and I really didn't put forth the effort like I did in college. And I had a great GPA in college, um, but like I feel like that's the thing to me is it's kind of crazy to base so much of your life. Now, if you're like us, like we went to community colleges, and I ended up transferring to a state university in Kansas, right? And
mhm,
just the way that so many colleges have already moved to not place that much emphasis on the SAT. I mean, let's be honest, it's largely a financial reasoning, you know.
yeah,
If you place such a high, you know, uh
important.
importance on that test, yeah, then you're not going to get a lot of people in the college, but um really it should look at the work as a whole, and what I wish they would do for acceptance in college is look at not just your GPA, but how you did in this subject, how you did in this subject. Look at more in depth, right?
Yeah,
Which they can to a degree. They get a transcript, they get whatnot. But yeah, to me, that's kind of the biggest thing. So, um, Yeah, man, I get what you're saying entirely, and I think it is important to move away from that in a degree, but it is weird at the same time. There needs to be something,
Mm.
uh, in my opinion, to
Hmm.
make the challenge there because it is higher education, and I know that we're kind of moving as a society toward making college free or at least much more affordable, and we should, but it also needs to separate itself in some way from normal education from public education, right? um
Hmm.
I kind of have, I even have mixed feelings about that as it comes out of my mouth because you really, on the flip side of even what I just said, I mean, should you make it easier for people to get to that next level of education, and that's where they're challenged, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess my thought processes on it is, I mean, if we're going to make college this big thing, to where it matters so much, right? And
Yeah,
it has a big effect on your job prospects and your future or whatever like that. I think the big thing is that, and we do want to make it hard to get into said colleges. I feel like we need to make sure too that when you get out of these colleges that you actually learn something, or
yeah,
you have actually learned something, because I know,
100%.
like, from my college experience, um, there is at least for sure a good 2 years of not really learning anything when it came to my career. And it's a lot of stuff that I probably don't use,
Yeah,
thinking about it, that I don't use anymore. It was about 2 years. It was my first 2 years of college. That was just
sure.
kind of a
Your
throwaway years
associates.
for the most
Yeah,
part. I mean, it kind of felt like, of course, I went to community college for those, but I don't think that really invalidated my experience, because I think it was the exact same, or it would have been the exact same
sure.
as if I would have gone to a 4 year university and did my 2 years there, because I was essentially just repeating, it felt like, at least, I was repeating high school. It was like high school 2.0 for those first
Yeah,
2 years.
right.
Um, and it's like that doesn't feel like a really good experience for me when it comes to like education, and like this is such a higher ed, or a higher standard of education,
Yeah,
but I'm repeating the same basics. Where, the last 2 years was okay, it made more sense, right? I'm doing stuff that's in my field, but even then, there were certain downfalls that I felt like weren't fully addressed. So I
sure.
guess, I guess that's my thought process is like, if we're going to make it seem this way, then I feel like we should really make colleges better.
Yeah, right.
If that makes any sense. Like,
Well, I would agree. Like the first year of college was not tied to my um, degree at all, and I would actually go so far as to say high school and college need to do a better job because there shouldn't be any reason that you get into college and you have to retake the courses that you took in high school. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And now, like, okay, like I took environmental science in college.
mm,
I loved it. It was so much fun, but it had nothing to do with my degree, and it was great. I think so. There may be like an inherent advantage to that because you can learn. You know what? Maybe I do want to go this way, right?
yeah,
Um, but to make it up to 2 years of doing that, I would say I started doing courses that were tied more to my career, what became my career, on the second year, my sophomore year of college.
mhm,
But so much of that was also mixed in with other courses that were not tied to it. Um, and so I don't know what the balance is really there, but what I was going to say is strengthen high school courses with more worthwhile content, if you will,
yeah,
and then target more towards somebody's major in college, because so many times this happened to me in high school, it happened to me in college. There'd be these courses that popped up that I was like, oh man, that would have been so cool. That would have been an awesome class to take.
Mm-hmm.
But, somehow I was supposed to have taken that my first semester of my freshman year,
Yep.
but I also have all these other courses to take. It's like, why? Why would you do that? Um, to even be able to take that in my senior year. So I think there does need to be a whole revamp to the whole system. I do believe that college should be made more affordable, but I don't know. What would you do with the SAT? Would you leave it as is? Would you go with the changes that's going with it? Or would you do away with it entirely?
Um, it's a really good question. To be honest, I'd probably do away with it entirely. I think, and my reasoning on it is that I feel like, um, for people who want to actually go to college, because not everyone wants to go to college, and college isn't for everybody. But I think for people who actually want to go to college, they should be given that opportunity. Yes, I think you can have it to where if you want to get into the college or you want to see where you will be in that college, because that's the other thing, right? I feel like certain colleges, even past once you pass the SAT, you still have to take another test just to see like where you fall.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
when it
Right.
comes to like their academic standards or whatever like that. So I would almost say get rid of the SAT and just keep that type of test. Um, because I feel like, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of tests. I think that's one big thing for me is because I've never been the best at tests, and I think it's not a way that, I'll say, the way that tests are structured currently. I don't feel like the way that I learn properly, um, or is properly made for people like me. The way that I learn and the way that I, am able to intake the knowledge and then put it out in, say, a test form or something like
Yeah.
that. And
Mhm.
that's been a case for me for years. I've always had issues with tests.
Sure.
Um, and so I do feel like having like a big test that has such a big weight, upon like where you go to college or if you're able to go to college, um, really excludes people who have a hard time and have a really stressful time with the SAT. And so I would much rather take out that and just do one of those more, I guess, and I guess it's technically called a placement test or something like that,
Sure.
where essentially you're taking these placement tests as a way to, um, probably figure out like where you need to go or whatever like that, but you're not losing that opportunity, because I feel like certain people, when they can't get the SAT right, they study and study and they try and it just doesn't work for them. They
Yeah.
lose that opportunity to go to college. They end up giving up, and then they find a different field, or they just go into the workforce, which isn't bad, I guess, per se, but you're depriving those people. I think you should
Of an
make it
opportunity.
open to everyone, but of course at the same time, the people who are truly dedicated will make it past or make it through, just the full 4 years, because that's the thing, you're taking a test so that way you can get into college to still take 4 years of school or whatever like that.
Yeah.
So it's like you're
Well,
already doing a bunch of other tests and a bunch of other stuff. So I don't know. I feel like getting rid of it isn't going to be that much of a big, like it's not going to change that much,
yeah.
when it
Well,
comes
and
to the
okay,
overall process.
I agree. Here's something interesting too, about this test is
Mm,
there is a bias. Well, first of all, it can be good. Here's a positive of it. It can show where there's financial need, where there's educational need,
hmm.
um, due to lack of passing rates, right?
Yep.
But on the flip side of this, think about when this was implemented, right? You know, the middle of the 1900s, and there still is, but there definitely was back then, a disparity in education between minority communities, and white communities. And
Mhm.
it's almost like gatekeeping to allow white people to be the ones that went to college, right?
Yep.
Rather than black and Mexican people, or sorry, Hispanic people.
Hmm.
I wish I could beep that out.
Just other minorities. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. Anyway, that is an interesting thing in and of itself. Now, obviously, the focus of it shifted, but while it can help those communities by showcasing where there is need, um, it also still hinders them, from getting access to college and a higher education should they want it.
Yep.
So it is interesting overall. I do remember, if I'm completely honest, when I was taking it, thinking to myself, why am I taking this test? This seems so dumb. You're going to put all this impact on one test that, quite honestly, we talked very little about throughout the year, and I had to study for separately from what we learned in high school.
Hmm.
I mean, that's just, it's weird. It's really weird. but but yeah, so no, I think we had a good discussion on this. I want to move forward into our next topic, which is the future of the
Yeah.
Catch Up Podcast. Um, so we're going to do a change of format with our new season. So this is the season finale, season 3, wrapping up right here.
Yeah.
But season 4 will begin. Season 4 will begin without delay. It will start next week,
Hmm.
and the key of it is, and we're going to ask for this every week, at least once a week, your participation in this, the listener. Um, we tested this a few weeks back, and it went really well.
Hmm.
We want to be able to catch up with you. That's the whole point of us doing this live stream, is to interact with you in real time on the live stream, have a conversation with people, right?
Yeah.
And discuss these trending and debatable topics as a community, right? So we want to continue to do that by opening this up to you, by discussing, hey, what's on your mind? What has you talking?
Hmm.
Uh, what are the things that are trending in your world that are grabbing your attention? And the scope of this is limitless, right? The only limit to it is you not telling us about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the only limit to it. And um, this can include anything. It can be our regular staple topics that we talk about. It can be, automotive stuff. It can be technology, music, anything else. But it can be anything outside that. And there's so many ways to connect with us, right? We have our email, theketchupcast@gmail.com. That's theketchupcast@gmail.com.
Hmm.
Um, you can chime in real time with us on the live stream. You can just DM us over on our Instagram page, our Facebook page. It,
YouTube.
yeah, or YouTube. Yeah, you can
Comment
do
on
that.
YouTube. We
Comment
read
on
those.
YouTube. Let us know. Like that. That's the biggest thing, is whatever is grabbing your attention, let us know. We'll talk about it. And even outside of that, if you want to come on the show and have a conversation with us,
Hmm.
by all means, let us know. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like this opens up a really exciting opportunity for us to build this community,
Yeah.
and this conversation. I think it's crucial right now. We started this because people were too busy in their lives to really slow down and have like deep, meaningful conversations.
Hmm.
And one thing that we found with the people that we know personally that listen to this podcast on a regular basis are they all share that sentiment, and they share that quality that they like to have deep convos, right? About
Yep.
big topics. And so we know that there's people out there that relate to this, and we want to continue to supply that. But it's also more important, I think, than ever to be able to connect with people, more people in this way, with the waves of COVID that come through, right? And
Yep.
some people don't care, but other people think, well, now's a time in the year where I can't go out that much, and so they long for that human interaction, which I totally understand. So I think it's a unique and exciting opportunity to be able to do this. What do you think, man? What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of been one of the goals, at the very beginning, like you said, of the podcast that we've always wanted to have something like this. I mean, I think even when we first got our Gmail, which is the ketchupcast at gmail.com, we've always wanted to have that interaction from our listeners
Yeah,
in our community, and we wanted to create that type of community because it's like the whole slogan of the podcast, right? It's the catch up, and it's not like we described, way back when, and we still do. It's a catch up, or it's a podcast about, not just me and John catching up, but like the community catching up,
yeah,
and we're able to inform you about, one stuff that's going on in our lives, but also stuff that's going on in the world. And we would love to be able to share that with you guys, and you guys be able to share that with us, be able to
yeah.
catch up with us,
Mhm.
because I think that's just what's so cool and amazing about not just a podcast, but this medium in general, that we're able to do that. We're able to reach out to so many people, not just people who are here, in the United States or in our hometowns, or, wherever we live, but we're also able to communicate to everyone around the world who, has access to the internet, I guess.
Yeah.
But, anyone out there. And that's what's so cool. And I think we, um, that's what we strive for. We strive to be able to just kind of relate to everybody in some way, form, or fashion.
Yeah,
Um,
connect in that way. Yeah.
exactly. And so, um, that's what we want to do, and that's why, going forward in season 4, that's what we're going to strive to try and do, at least.
Well,
Um,
yeah. I think we
yeah,
just put it out there that we will do it.
yeah.
That's what I think. Um, for some examples, we tried this late last year, and we had the suggestion of dream interpretation, right? Which
Hmm.
ended up being a very interesting discussion, one of the more unique ones that we had, but we were able to talk about it. And I think both of us learned something from it too, which
Yeah.
I feel like if we're learning something from it, then hopefully you guys are too. And then next, actually kind of tied to what we talked about today, but somebody else had, I believe it was finals they were studying for. I don't think it was midterms.
Hmm.
It may have been midterms, but anyway, we talked about the relevancy of that, you know,
Hmm.
and again, really just putting so much emphasis on a shorter period of time, for your entire life, really, the
Yeah.
trajectory of your life. So, um, yeah, it can create these really interesting conversations, even if you think it's mundane. But I talk with my friends, I talk with my family all the time about these kind of topics that really are bigger than you expect. I mean, we
Hmm.
could have gone so many different directions with this. We could have talked about Ford not expecting for this week's episode, I should say. We could have talked about Ford not accepting any more deliveries for the Maverick. We could
Hmm.
have talked about the Ukraine thing, but the thing
Yeah.
is, you're hearing about supply chain issues all the time now. You're hearing about Ukraine all the time now, and what we try to do is keep those conversations to things that are important to us and impactful to people, but
Yep.
also not the thing that you hear all the time, right? So if you have a topic on your mind that's like that, send it our way, DM us, Facebook, Instagram. All this is linked in the description of this episode. And you can even direct message us over on our website too.
Hmm.
There's so many ways to connect with us, and we want to hear from you because of that. So I think the summary of it is the catch up podcast moving forward is entirely fan driven, right?
Hmm.
Entirely fan driven. So anytime that you have a topic idea, it can even be on our live stream, that moment of send us a
Hmm.
topic idea. And let us know what you think, and we'll run with it. We'll have a conversation about it. We'll connect with you through it. And yeah, we're just excited to be able to connect with more people in that way. So it's going to be really cool.
Hmm.
It's going to be a big step for us, but I think it will really benefit the listener. It'll benefit us. It'll be fun. And I can't wait to do it, man. So,
Yeah, me neither.
yeah. So, very cool. This was the season finale of the Catch Up Podcast, season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Great. A lot of shows have great seasons in season 3, man. They can't follow it up, you know?
Yeah, man.
But we're not going to fall victim to that trend. We're going to come back better than ever.
Yeah,
So,
it's gonna be a Super 4.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So, we'll be here, same place, same time, with the live streams, different format. So give us your topic suggestions throughout the week. We can't wait to hear them. We can't wait to connect with you. So thank you guys so much for catching up with us. And we'll catch up with you next week.